I thought I was going insane, until the pieces started to form a picture so horrifying I could barely breathe. My name is Anna, and I'm 23 years old. For the past 7 months I've been dating Liam, who is 24. Before we started dating, we were close friends for almost 4 years. He was the funny, kind, and incredibly loyal guy I'd always secretly had a crush on. When he finally asked me out, it felt like a dream come true. He was, and in many ways still is, the most attentive and loving boyfriend I could have ever imagined. He remembers the little things, brings me coffee in bed, and his touch can still make my heart skip a beat. And now I'm pregnant. The news was a shock, both terrifying and exhilarating. We weren't planning it, but the more we talked about it, the more the excitement grew. We started dreaming about names, about a future as a family of 3. Liam was over the moon, constantly touching my still flat stomach and talking about teaching his son or daughter how to ride a bike. There was, however, one significant shadow over our happiness. Liam's mother, Diana. Liam and I have been living in her house for about 5 months. My own apartment lease ended, and with the pregnancy, it made sense to save money and stay with him while we looked for a place of our own. Diana is a widow in her late 50s. Liam's father passed away from a sudden heart attack when Liam was only 10 years old. From everything Liam has told me, Diana never recovered. She never dated again, never seemed to have any friends. Her entire world shrunk to the size of this small, perpetually dim house and her son. Liam looks strikingly like his father. He's shown me old photographs, and the resemblance is uncanny. The same dark, intense eyes, the same strong jawline, the same way of standing with his hands in his pockets. I noticed early on that Diana would sometimes just stare at him with a strange, melancholic expression. Liam told me once, after a particularly tense dinner, that she often tells him, "You have his eyes. It's like looking at a ghost." She said it with a sigh that felt heavier than just grief. She was never overtly rude to me, but there was a constant, chilly distance. She would answer my questions with monosyllables, and when we were all in the same room, she would direct all her conversation solely at Liam, as if I were a piece of the furniture. Liam assured me she was just shy and awkward, that she liked me but didn't know how to show it. My intuition, a low humming alarm in the back of my mind, told me otherwise. It wasn't shyness, it was resentment. Liam warned me that she had been jealous of all his past girlfriends. He said she felt abandoned, that she relied on him for everything. I tried to be understanding. I couldn't imagine the pain of losing a spouse so young. I brushed off the red flags. The way she'd text him constantly when we were out, asking when he was coming home. The way she'd make a comment if he held my hand for too long in front of her. The fact that she spent most of her time sequestered in her bedroom, the door firmly shut. Then things started to get weird. It was a Tuesday morning. I was about 11 weeks pregnant, and the first trimester exhaustion had hit me like a truck. Liam and I had woken up late, and we were lounging in his room, which was right next to his mother's. The walls in the old house were thin, and I could always hear the distinct high-pitched creak of her bedroom door. I was feeling particularly nauseous and tired, so I decided to lie down for a nap while Liam played a video game on his console. He turned the volume down low, kissed my forehead, and said he was going to make me some ginger tea and toast to help with the nausea. I drifted off to the soft sounds of the game's soundtrack. I'm not sure how long I was asleep. I was pulled from my dreams by a sound, a rhythmic heavy thumping against the wall. It was coming from the other side of the wall, from Diana's room. My sleep-addled brain tried to place it. It was too loud and too regular to be someone just moving around. Thump, thump, thump. Then I heard the creak of the door and Liam's voice, low and intimate, a tone I recognized instantly. It was the way he whispered to me when we were being playful and intimate. "Oh, so you're going to be difficult today, huh?" he said. The thumping continued, now sounding like it was moving into the hallway, right outside our door. I heard a soft feminine gasp, followed by low mumbling that I couldn't quite make out, but the cadence, the rhythm of it, was unmistakably sensual. My blood ran cold. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sounded like sex. Sounded exactly like sex. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the pregnancy. I swung my legs out of bed and quietly moved to sit by the door, turning off the game console completely. The moment the screen went black and the room fell silent, the noises in the hallway stopped abruptly. It was as if they had heard me, as if a switch had been flipped. I heard shuffling feet, and then Diana's voice, a hushed, sharp whisper. "Lie." Liam's response was immediate, strained. "Yes, Mom." I heard his footsteps going down the stairs. A few minutes later, he came back into the room, holding a single cup of tea. No toast. He looked flushed and he couldn't meet my eyes. "Where's the toast?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Oh, the bread was moldy," he said, his words coming out in a rush. "What was that noise?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. He froze for a fraction of a second. "Noise? What noise?" "That banging. And the talking. It sounded like it was right outside the door." He set the tea down on the nightstand, his hand shaking slightly. "It was nothing. I was just arguing with my mom. It got a little heated." "Arguing about what?" I pressed, my voice rising. "It didn't sound like an argument, Liam. It sounded different." He started pacing the small room, running a hand through his hair. "It was about money. She's upset about some bills. It was stupid. I don't know what banging you heard. Maybe it was the pipes? Or the neighbor's dog. It gets stuck in the backyard sometimes." "The neighbor's dog was making a rhythmic banging sound in our hallway?" I asked, my disbelief turning into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. "Liam, I know what I heard. It sounded like you were with someone." He stopped pacing and looked at me, his face a mask of panic and something else, shame. "With someone? Who would I be with, Anna? That's insane. My mom was the only one out there." He let out a forced, nervous laugh. "You're not suggesting?" "God, that's sick. You're being crazy." The word crazy felt like a slap. I dropped it because what else could I do? I had no proof. Just a horrible sinking feeling in my gut, and the memory of a sound I couldn't unhear. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, my mind reeling. Was I losing my mind? Were pregnancy hormones creating paranoid delusions? But later that night, as I lay beside him, unable to sleep, other memories began to surface, things I had brushed aside or explained away. There was the time I'd come home early and heard him walking up the stairs behind her. He'd whispered, "You can't run from me," and she had giggled. A girlish, flirty sound that had struck me as odd at the time. Another time I'd been in the bathroom and heard a sharp, clapping sound from her room, followed by silence, then Liam's low chuckle. I remembered a conversation I'd overheard in the kitchen. Him saying, "You know you're the only one for me. How can I make you happy?" I'd assumed he was on the phone with a friend, but when he came out, he said he'd been talking to his mom. The most disturbing memory surfaced like a corpse from deep water. A few weeks into our relationship, we'd been talking about childhood scars. He'd told me a story about how, when he was very young, a doctor had found one of his mother's long hairs tightly wrapped around his penis, so tight it had caused irritation. He'd laughed it off as a weird, embarrassing story, but now the memory made my skin crawl. The pieces were there, forming a grotesque puzzle. A couple of weeks after the argument, my suspicions were pushed into overdrive. We were in his room, and he went downstairs to get me a blanket. I heard Diana's door open with a soft, careful push, not its usual loud creak. I didn't hear her heavy footsteps on the stairs. It was as if she was sneaking down. Then I heard faint, muffled voices from the kitchen, followed by a series of soft, rhythmic thuds. Liam was gone for 20 minutes to fetch a blanket from the laundry room, which was a 2-minute trip. When he returned, he looked disheveled and guilty. I didn't say anything. I just watched him. A minute later, I heard Diana stomping up the stairs, making a point to be loud. "Were you just talking to your mom?" I asked quietly. He flinched. "What? No. Why would you ask that?" I didn't say I heard anything. I just asked a question. He stared at me, and I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "You're obsessed with this. You're always listening, always watching us. It's not healthy, Anna. You're creating problems that aren't there." But his defensiveness only confirmed my fears. He was projecting. He knew exactly what I was thinking because he knew what he was doing. I was trapped in a nightmare. I was pregnant with this man's child, and I was increasingly convinced he was involved in an incestuous relationship with his mother. The thought made me physically ill. What kind of life would my child have? What kind of man was his father? A victim? A participant? And the most terrifying thought of all, if this was happening, what was to stop that cycle from continuing with my baby? I made an appointment at a clinic 2 hours away. The decision to terminate the pregnancy was the most painful one I had ever considered, but the idea of bringing a child into this twisted dynamic felt like a profound act of cruelty. The morning of the appointment, I was a wreck. I sat in my car, crying for an hour before finally starting the drive. A massive accident on the highway created a traffic jam that stretched for miles. I watched the clock, my anxiety spiking with every passing minute. By the time the road cleared, it was too late. I had missed my appointment window. I pulled over to the side of the road and sobbed, feeling like fate itself was conspiring against me. That night, I confronted Liam one last time. I didn't accuse him. I didn't yell. I sat him down and spoke from a place of utter exhaustion and despair. "Liam," I said, my voice raw, "I know what I heard that day. I know what I've seen and felt since. I am not crazy. If I am, then I need serious help, and you should be terrified for me and our baby. But I don't think I am. I think something is very, very wrong in this house between you and your mother. I don't know if it's sexual, I don't know if it's emotional, but it is sick. And it is destroying me." He was silent for a long time, just staring at his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with tears. "I'm not crazy," I whispered again. He took a shaky breath. "I don't think you're crazy," he said, his voice barely audible. That was the first crack in the wall. He didn't confess, but he didn't deny the core of my fear. It was the closest I would get to an admission. "I am messed up," he continued, his voice cracking. "My childhood. It wasn't normal. She's not well." He began to hyperventilate, his whole body trembling. "I hate it here. I want to get out. I want to get away from her." It was in that moment that my perspective shifted. The anger and disgust I felt began to be tempered by a horrifying pity. He wasn't just a perpetrator. He was a prisoner. He had been groomed and manipulated his entire life by a deeply disturbed woman. "We are leaving," I said with a firmness that surprised me. "We are finding an apartment this week. And your mother will never, ever be alone with our child. Do you understand me?" He nodded, a look of profound relief washing over his tear-streaked face. "Okay," he choked out. "Okay." The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. We found a small, clean apartment on the other side of town. Liam became a man possessed, packing our things with a frantic energy. He started leaving the bedroom door wide open whenever he left the room, a silent invitation for me to see that nothing was happening. It was his way of trying to rebuild trust. Diana sensed the shift. She became increasingly unhinged. During a tense dinner at a local diner, as Liam was complaining about his steak being overcooked, she looked at him and said, "You're just never satisfied, are you? Just like with everything else." Another time, when he mentioned the apartment had a great shower, she smirked and said, "I bet it hits all the right spots." The comments were dripping with a vile, inappropriate intimacy. The day before we moved the last of our boxes, she sent him a string of venomous texts, which he showed me without me having to ask. She called him an ungrateful son, said I was a manipulative bitch who had stolen him from her, and sarcastically wished us a happy little life, before declaring she never wanted to see him again. It was the desperate, jealous rage of a woman losing her grip on her possession. On our final trip out of the house, I witnessed the final chilling confirmation. Liam was bringing a box down from the attic. I was in his old room doing a final sweep. I heard Diana's door open and her call out to him in the hallway. "Liam? Are you leaving now?" "Yeah, Mom. This is the last of it." There was a pause. I crept closer to the door, my heart in my throat. "Can't you stay for a little while? For old time's sake." Her voice was a wheedling, pathetic plea. "No, Mom. I have to go." "Just a cuddle," she whispered, and the word made my skin crawl. "Please? Just for a minute. You're never coming back." My blood ran cold. This was not a mother sad to see her son leave the nest. This was a lover being abandoned. Liam's response was firm but strained. "No. Goodbye, Mom." He came into the room, his face pale and his jaw tight. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw a lifetime of shame and trauma. He didn't have to say a word. I took his hand and we walked out of that house for the last time. We have been in our new apartment for 3 weeks now. The silence here is peaceful, not heavy. The air is clean. Liam has started seeing a therapist, though he still hasn't spoken to me directly about what happened. He says he's not ready, but he talks about feeling lighter. He touches my growing belly with a reverence that feels new, more present. I don't know if he will ever give me the explicit confession I once thought I needed. The truth is no longer a spoken fact. It is the foundation of our new life. It is in the locks on our doors, the boundaries we have set, and the understanding that Diana will never cross our threshold. The nightmare of that house is behind us. We are focused on the future, on our son, on building a family that is healthy and whole. The past is a locked room we have chosen to leave forever, and we are never ever going back.